Chapter 221. Slytherin, I don't want to turn into an old lady. Tom, what on earth are you doing? Xiaoji exclaimed angrily. Xiaoji tossed a robe toward Tom, urging him to cover his body with it. Otherwise, Xiaoji felt he might not be able to handle the sight. Previously, he had seen numerous possible outcomes, all of which featured a perfectly normal Tom. That's why he'd bothered to look no further. The success rate was already extremely high. Yet this current Tom bore absolutely no resemblance to those previous versions. Tom had turned into a woman. Blonde hair, blue eyes, fair skin, and a curvaceous figure. She looked nothing like Cassandra Vole, who was only 11 or 12 at the time. This Tom appeared to be a full 17 or 18 years old. Such a scenario was undoubtedly one of the less likely possibilities, the kind Xiaoji had ignored due to sheer laziness. Didn't I tell you to focus solely on envisioning your own appearance at the final moment, without any distractions? Xiaoji muttered, clutching his forehead. He was starting to feel a headache coming on. Though Tom didn't quite grasp what distractions meant, she understood perfectly well Xiaoji's fury and shock. She glanced down at her body, then furrowed those 073 marked brows. I crafted this body entirely according to my own desires, she stated. Meanwhile, Xiaoji anxiously flipped through stacks of notes. If that's the case, where exactly did things go wrong? Could this be a side effect? Yet I minimized those effects as much as possible. They'd logically manifest in innate abilities, not physical form. Frustrated, Xiaoji scratched his head, nearly pulling out handfuls of hair. Snape stood nearby, his emotions equally conflicted. Calling this a failure seemed unfair. Xiaoji had indeed succeeded in reviving that fragmented soul. Yet calling it a success felt equally off. The revived form had the wrong gender. Snape temporarily abandoned his intention to demand the formula from Xiaoji. What if Lily ended up as a man? Would he still love her? No. No matter what form Lily takes, I'll still love him. Snape resolved firmly. Still, he sincerely hoped Xiaoji could tweak the formula. After all, while he personally mightn't mind Lily becoming male, she herself might object vehemently. I truly envision my body without any stray thoughts whatsoever. Hence, Tom spoke again. Her voice carried a soft, melodic timbre. So this must mean there's a flaw in your potion formula. Wait a sec. Suddenly, Xiaoji raised his head, eyes locked on Tom's breathtakingly lovely face. Don't tell me, you actually wanted to become a woman from the very start? Exactly. I explicitly stated earlier, I shaped this body entirely to my own wishes. A resolute expression settled on Tom's feminine features. Isn't this form perfectly fine? Oof, Xiaoji instinctively leaned backward, as if meeting Tom anew. Who'd have guessed that beneath young Tom's restless exterior beat a heart yearning to be female? But why? Xiaoji remained utterly baffled. He set aside his potion notes. Since this reflected Tom's own will, it clearly wasn't a flaw in his formula. I've no idea. While constructing my body, I suddenly felt this overwhelming urge to do this. So I did it. Honestly, I rather like it now. Tom admired her physique softly. Geez, something's definitely off. All right, perhaps this stems from my soul magic. Splitting souls inevitably invites unpredictable complications. After lengthy contemplation, Xiaoji finally surmised the issue likely lay in his own soul magic techniques. Had he perhaps overlooked something crucial while dividing Tom's soul? Like Tom's original masculine essence, for instance. Though Xiaoji truly didn't want to shoulder the blame, this seemed undeniably his fault. Unlike Xiaoji's distress, Snape inwardly jubilated. This meant the problem wasn't in Xiaoji's potion formula at all. Consequently, Lily's revival wouldn't produce a male body. This formula absolutely must be secured by him. The soul hurdle now, locating Lily's soul. Should he even seek instruction in soul magic from Xiaoji? Yet his own soul magic had seemingly malfunctioned moments prior. Still, Lily's soul should have remained intact. Thus, nothing vital ought to be missing. Sighing, Xiaoji resignedly accepted this massive responsibility. The deed was done. Recreating Tom's body now seemed impossible. At least, not in the short term. Her soul had barely acclimated to this form. Moreover, Tom seemed utterly content with her current state. No desire to change appeared evident. Whatever, Xiaji shrugged. At least my formula itself is sound. Tom's body utilized basilisk blood, granting her pupils an arresting emerald hue, occasionally flickering with greenish luminescence. Xiaji suspected she'd inherited some of the basilisk's ocular magic, likely not to the extreme extent of petrifying anyone who made eye contact, but the ability to paralyze foes via gaze seemed probable. Professor Snape, you've witnessed the entire process. What are your thoughts? Xiaji inquired. I'd need time to analyze your formula. Though, naturally, if it's inconvenient. Snape carefully weighed his words, scheming how best to obtain the recipe. Yet before he could finish, Xiaji readily handed over those thick stacks of notes, effortlessly, without resistance. Snape received them in stunned disbelief. Was it really this easy? He'd anticipated needing considerable persuasion. You're simply giving this to me? The formula still carries minor side effects. Further refinement is necessary. You're a potion master yourself, aren't you? Xiaji shrugged nonchalantly. Snape gazed at the recipe with fervent intensity. This was a potion capable of resurrecting the dead. Its mere existence would drive countless souls to frenzy, especially Voldemort. Snape steeled his resolve. This formula must be safeguarded at all costs, never falling into Voldemort's hands. He remained utterly unaware that moments prior, Xiaji had resurrected Voldemort right before his eyes. Currently, Snape contemplated how best to request instruction in soul magic from Xiaji. As for Tom's body, Xiaji still hadn't fully gauged its side effects, though failure to fully inherit basilisk ocular powers seemed a minor drawback. After all, he'd prepped protective spells against such abilities. No signs of attack had materialized. Thus, Tom hadn't fully acquired that monstrous gift. Xiaji averted his gaze from Tom. Something felt deeply unsettling about a man transformed into a woman, regardless of how exquisitely lovely she appeared now. He now faced another predicament. Tom's current abilities remained insufficient. Had she stayed male, leaving her to self-study in his basement would have sufficed. But now that she was female, allowing her unsupervised access to his home seemed unwise. His mother might misinterpret her as another, winged companion, which would spell disaster. After careful deliberation, Xiaji addressed Snape. Professor, tonight's matters conclude here. Please return home now. I still must tend to Tom's affairs. Snape glanced at Tom, interpreting Xiaji's intent as wishing to send this woman away. He nodded, clutching those precious notes, then swiftly departed the room of requirement. Tonight, he vowed, he toiled tirelessly refining the formula. The sooner Lily could be revived. Watching Snape depart, Xiaji retrieved his notebook. Resignedly, he spoke. Old man, now you may emerge. I knew all along you lurked inside this notebook. No response came, until Xiaji called twice more. Only then did Slytherin's fragmented soul twist forth from the pages. Ahem. I merely wished to remain close to my descendant. An old soul deserves such small comforts, no? Slytherin's simian-like features wore an awkward expression. I'm not reprimanding you. Still, Xiaji gestured toward Tom, who was now cautiously practicing walking while clutching a cauldron, utterly unfazed by its heat. What are your thoughts on her? Me? What can I possibly say? Truthfully, Slytherin remained baffled. He couldn't fathom why any man would wish to become a woman. Yet I suspect this stems from flaws in your soul magic. Her emotions partially sync with yours, meaning 5.0. Have you yourself? I've no such peculiar inclinations. I find being male perfectly acceptable. Yet her revulsion targets masculinity itself. Slytherin eyed Xiaji strangely. Should you ever desire female form, I possess several highly effective potion recipes. Bah, nonsense, Xiaji waved dismissively. She doesn't loathe masculinity, she adores femininity. You know full well her preferences bear no link to mine. So, why summon me? I've reviewed your formula, It's already superb. For the dead, mere resurrection suffices. Any extra abilities, even absent, pose no issue. Care to be revived? I can craft a body for you anytime. Xiaji arched a brow at the old man. I'd rather not. As a fragmented soul, my revival demands meticulous repair. Child's play for me. Absolutely not. I refuse to be stuffed with any manner of bizarre substances. Moreover, Slytherin shuddered. I refuse to become an old crone. Chapter 222. Stand up to bullying and fight back. An old lady? No. You can shape your own body exactly as you wish, you know. So you could easily become a gorgeous woman with all the right curves, just like Tom. Xiaji chuckled. All right, no more jokes. What do you plan to do now? Slytherin gazed toward Tom, who was still adjusting to his new body in the distance. I originally intended to have him hide in my basement, so he could study on his own. You see, the current Tom simply can't compare to the Tom of the future. Right now, he knows far less than he will later on. Originally intended? So, what's your plan now? Now that he's become her, I'll let her stay in the Chamber of Secrets. I'm sure you wouldn't mind mentoring your own descendant. I'll simply bring food to both of you regularly. Xiaji fell deep into thought. Tom still needed to learn a great deal if he wanted to grow stronger, but self-study would be far too slow. Now that Slytherin himself was present, albeit only as a fragmented soul, his knowledge remained intact. Wouldn't it be far better to have him provide guidance rather than letting Tom struggle on his own? I have no objections. Still, the Chamber of Secrets is utterly dark. I think you ought to ask Tom what she thinks. I'm fine with it, as long as it helps me grow stronger, came Tom's rich, alluring voice. She had finally fully adapted to her new body. At least now she no longer needed to lean on anything just to walk. Her face still bore that stubborn expression. Though her gender had changed, her resolve to become powerful remained unshaken. Ever since witnessing Xiaji's true abilities, that determination had only grown stronger. Compared to the chance of learning from Slytherin himself, the idea of staying in a pitch-black chamber held no fear for her whatsoever. Since you have no objections, then it's settled. Xiaji nodded. Apart from the chamber, he truly couldn't think of any other suitable place. He certainly couldn't leave Tom in a suitcase, a place Cassandra frequently visited. If she were to find a stunningly beautiful girl hidden inside, well, though Xiaji was rather clueless when it came to romance, he wasn't completely brainless, unless he truly wanted to court disaster. Xiaji swiftly cleaned up the cauldrons and leftover potion residue, then summoned Ysiri the Phoenix. With a wave, he teleported both himself and Tom straight into the Chamber of Secrets. One great advantage of the Phoenix was its ability to facilitate teleportation anywhere. Otherwise, entering the chamber would require opening its gates and sliding down a tunnel, which would be endlessly troublesome. The chamber remained just as it always was, dimly lit, with the only illumination coming from various faintly glowing gems. Xiaji placed several enchanted lanterns inside, brightening one corner of the chamber. He then handed Tom a small package, enchanted with the extendable ear spell, containing various daily necessities and food he'd packed earlier. If you need anything, just send me a message. I'll have Ysiri deliver it to you. Xiaji handed over a ring. Unlike the others used by the DA, this one was entirely black, yet still capable of transmitting messages. Slytherin reappeared from within his diary. Earlier, when Xiaji teleported, he'd slipped back into it. I hope next time I'll see a different Tom. And I'm taking this with me. Xiaji waved the diary, then summoned Ysiri once more. With a flash of fiery light, he vanished from the spot. Tom glanced at the ring in his hand before slipping it onto his finger. It fit perfectly. Today was the weekend, and Xiaji had finally managed to slip away from a heartbroken Hagrid. Hagrid had just realized that his dear friend Aragog had vanished. Moreover, the entire colony of giant spiders had suffered catastrophic destruction. Aragog's fate seemed grim indeed. This left Hagrid utterly distraught, and Xiaji could only offer comforting words. He certainly couldn't admit he'd been the one responsible. After all, Godric's venom and fangs still rested safely inside his ring. Fortunately, upon receiving Hagrid's letter, Xiaji had promptly brought Harry, Ron, and the others along. With their company, Hagrid was comforted enough for Xiaji to fabricate an excuse and leave early. Xiaji didn't summon Cassandra and the others. After all, she'd been one of the accomplices, and he worried she might slip up. He rubbed his face, feigning a sorrowful expression, though it left him utterly exhausted. Yet glancing at his pocket watch, he saw it was still early. He'd planned to head straight back to the castle, but then he turned his head and noticed the Forbidden Forest. He harbored an inexplicable affection for forests, a trait tied to his innate druidic abilities. Time was still plenty, so why not take a stroll through the forest? With that thought, Xiaji cheerfully made a decision that violated school rules. Glancing around and confirming no one was present, he quietly slipped into the woods. The forest was utterly silent. Perhaps due to winter, most creatures remained hidden. On his previous 2 visits, he'd come with clear purposes and always at night, rushing in and out. Truth be told, he'd never truly explored the Forbidden Forest at leisure. Given his powers, he had no fear of any dark creatures lurking within. Besides, this was merely the forest's outer edge. No real danger existed. Suddenly, he heard a peculiar sound, reminiscent of horses neighing, yet not quite so. Pushing aside some foliage, he spotted a group of Thestrals. He'd encountered them at the start of term. On September 1st, he'd ridden in a carriage pulled by Thestrals to the castle. Though emaciated and bony, they possessed a gentle nature. Xiaji had long wished to converse with them. As magical creatures possessing considerable power, they were said to appear only to those who'd witnessed death's horror. Perhaps he could negotiate with them to obtain some blood for study? Upon seeing him, the Thestrals instinctively gathered close, nuzzling him affectionately with their heads. As a druid, Xiaji was a child of nature, naturally exuding an aura that drew animals and magical beasts alike. He took out some meat from his ring to feed them, chatting warmly, while scheming to extract something useful from these kind-hearted creatures. Care to feed the Thestrals too? Clearly, you can see them as well. A ethereal voice rang out from behind him. Xiaji turned to see Luna Lovegood, her wand still tucked behind her ear, a satchel slung over her shoulder. Several Thestrals approached her. She reached into her bag, pulled out meat, and tossed it skillfully. Evidently, this wasn't her first time feeding them. Clearly, Luna could see Thestrals too. Yet Xiaji, attention shifted to her feet. She was barefoot, stepping freely through the forest. She'd apparently enchanted her feet to resist the cold. No one deliberately wandered the Forbidden Forest barefoot in winter. "Have you been bullied by classmates?" he asked. "Bullying? Not at all." Luna blinked. "Are you referring to my feet? I simply lost my shoes." She squatted down, rubbing her feet. Despite the warmth charm, they still felt chilly. To her, the idea of someone hiding her shoes seemed more like a prank than actual bullying. But it was winter. Xiaji felt irritation rising. Silently, he produced a new pair of shoes from his ring, then waved his wand. The shoes twisted and reshaped into a pair of exquisitely crafted leather boots. "Here, put these on. Otherwise, you'll risk frostbite." His tone stern, he handed her the boots, enchanted with constant warmth magic. Luna accepted them without hesitation, slipping them on happily. They fit her perfectly. Xiaji had always possessed keen judgment. Determining sizes at a glance was one of his many talents. "These boots are lovely and so warm. Are you upset?" He nodded. In Luna's presence, he never concealed his emotions.
"A bit, yes."
"Regardless, this behavior is utterly unacceptable. They merely hid my shoes. I'd have retrieved them eventually." Luna shrugged indifferently. Allowing minor acts of malice to persist can easily escalate into grave wrongdoing, Xiaji replied earnestly. "You mustn't permit others to mistreat you. Besides, should they grow accustomed to bullying, they might one day cross paths with someone far more formidable. Restraining them is ultimately for their own good." "So, what should I do?" Luna tossed another morsel. A small Thestral leapt up, snatching it eagerly before swallowing it contentedly. In such cases, you must consult a professor, Xiaji declared gravely. Let's visit Professor Flitwick later. Students encountering conflicts ought to report them first to their teachers. A dedicated educator like Flitwick would never allow his students to suffer harm. Luna pondered briefly, then agreed. Xiaji was right. Allowing such behavior unchecked could bring dire consequences. This was indeed for their own benefit. Where's your crumple-horn snorecap? Xiaji glanced behind her, noticing no sign of her ever-present companion. It's napping in our dormitory. It dislikes moving much in winter. At the mention of her pet, Luna's eyes sparkled. To her, this crumple-horn snorecat was both a cherished friend and family. For someone as socially isolated as Luna, friends were a rare luxury. Though Xiaji counted as a friend, they belonged to different houses and rarely met. This little creature was now her closest confidant. Xiaji and Luna lingered in the Forbidden Forest for quite some time before finally exiting. Once I find my shoes, I'll return them to you, Luna said, walking side by side with him. They're a gift from me. I enchanted them with permanent expansion magic. Even if you returned them, I wouldn't be able to wear them. Understood. Thank you so much. Luna beamed sweetly. I also enchanted them so no one can steal them from you, unless you willingly discard them. I'd never part with them. She gazed fondly at her warm, lovely boots. Chapter 2:23. Luna compared to friends being expelled is nothing. Luna absolutely adored these boots. They made her feel so warm and cozy. Yet, who could truly remain completely unfazed after being bullied? Even though it was the weekend, Professor Flitwick remained in his office. He was currently studying a rather obscure and difficult spell. Hearing a knock at the door, he set down his book and called out, "Come in." Xiaji opened the door and entered alongside Luna. "Ah, Xiaji, I was just thinking, when would you finally come to visit me? I recently acquired a new spell, admittedly a bit complex. I believe it might inspire you." Professor Flitwick warmly welcomed them inside. The office was wonderfully warm. Clearly, Professor Flitwick had cast several minor spells to maintain such comfort. A cup of tea and some little cakes? The professor opened a drawer, which always held delicious treats meant to welcome any visiting students. Xiaji and Luna took their seats and sipped the steaming tea. On such a frigid winter day, nothing felt better than a hot cup of tea, especially after both of them had just emerged from the Forbidden Forest. It truly helped drive away the cold. "Oh, Xiaji, Miss Lovegood, what brings you here?" Only after they finished their tea did Professor Flitwick ask. He could tell Xiaji hadn't merely brought Luna along just to visit him. "Well, Professor Flitwick," Xiaji carefully explained to him all that had happened to Luna, how her belongings kept mysteriously disappearing and so on. "Professor, though Luna herself doesn't seem to mind these pranks, as her friend, I simply can't stand the thought of her having to go barefoot in the dead of winter." Professor Flitwick's expression turned grave. This behavior clearly crossed into bullying. He knew Luna's personality was rather peculiar, but any Ravenclaw student was bound to have their eccentric quirks. Genius and madness often walked hand in hand. He'd already guessed that some students who disliked Luna were deliberately tormenting her. "Oh, this is my fault. I've failed as head of house. I assure you, Miss Lovegood, such incidents won't happen again. Bullying one's peers is utterly reprehensible." The professor appeared genuinely upset. Professor, I'm not actually blaming them." Luna gently set down her cup. "I believe they only wanted to play a little joke on me. Please don't punish them. I understand, yet their actions remain wrong, and I must reprimand them. Also, Miss Lovegood, you should have come to me sooner. We must learn to stand up against such behavior." Professor Flitwick spoke earnestly. Excessive tolerance only emboldens such bullies. If they develop that mindset, they'll end up tormenting other students too. This is no trivial matter. "Ah, Xiaji, I owe you my thanks. Had you not brought Miss Lovegood to me, I'd have remained unaware of such misbehavior within my own house." By the time they left Professor Flitwick's office, darkness had fully descended. Xiaji bid Luna farewell in the corridor and headed toward the kitchens. Dinner had long since ended, so if he wanted hot food, he'd have to ask the diligent house elves there. Xiaji truly envied Hufflepuff students. Their common room was so close to the kitchens that he'd undoubtedly gain dozens of pounds if he joined them. When Xiaji opened the hidden kitchen door, he spotted the tall, handsome Cedric awkwardly crouched down, clumsily eating knife-cut noodles. Ahem. Good evening, Xiaji. Cedric's chopsticks slipped from his grasp, clattering to the floor. Hasn't that crazy girl returned yet? Allison glanced toward Luna's empty bed. Who knows? Maybe she's still hunting for her boots. Daisy snickered. Where did you hide them? Somewhere she'd never find them. Allison chuckled, tearing open a bag of sweets. She'll probably end up barefoot all night. In winter, that'll teach her a lesson. Whatever. She's always so odd, prattling on about molesting gnats and crumple-horned snorkacks. Yeah, she's always spouting nonsense about imaginary things. Heard she's friends with Xiaji? Impossible. Xiaji is so handsome and brilliant. He'd never befriend a lunatic like her. She herself said so. Xiaji is her friend and lives nearby. Seems we didn't teach her enough lessons. Jealousy flared in Allison's heart. What are you planning? Allison's gaze drifted toward the small creature curled up asleep on Luna's bed. Luna felt delightfully happy. From now on, no one would ever bully her again. These boots were so lovely and warm. She couldn't wait to tell Norton all about today. Norton was the little crumple-horned snorkack Xiaji had gifted her, her dearest companion. She skipped back toward Ravenclaw Tower. Suddenly, the massive bronze eagle ring atop the bronze door emitted a melodious voice. Pray, how does one prove an object truly exists? If one can utilize it, then it exists. Wise words. The door swung inward, revealing an entrance. Cheerfully, Luna stepped through. Unlike other houses, Ravenclaw Tower required no password and allowed entry to students from any house. The sole condition was answering the door's riddle correctly. Even Ravenclaws who failed were barred entry. Yet, Luna had never once struggled with this test. She hurried back to her dormitory, but Norton, who should have been fast asleep on her bed, was nowhere to be found. Norton? Luna called out, assuming he'd merely wandered off. Yet, after searching the entire dorm and common room, she still found no trace of him. Then she recalled her missing belongings. Had Norton also been hidden away? She rushed back to her room, where her roommates Allison and Daisy were snacking and reading. Have you seen my friend Norton? She asked. Friend? I thought he was just your pet, Allison remarked indifferently. Did you see him? Luna ignored the sarcasm and pressed on. Norton never left her side. This disappearance baffled her. I saw him wake up, so I took him outside for a bit, Daisy replied. Oh, where is he now? Luna didn't mind her friends playing with Norton. I strolled with him near the Black Lake, but Allison called me back to study. I left in such a hurry. I think I forgot him there. Luna's face paled. The Black Lake bordered the Forbidden Forest. Norton was utterly defenseless. If he wandered into those woods at night, how could you leave him out there? Luna cried frantically. Must you panic? He's just a pet, Allison shrugged. But Luna's eyes brimmed with tears. He's merely a pet. How much gold could he possibly be worth? If he's lost, I'll pay you for another one. Seeing Luna's first true distress, Daisy smirked triumphantly at Allison. Yet their smugness was too obvious. Luna noticed everything. You did this on purpose, didn't you? Why? Fury surged. She drew her wand. What are you doing? Allison stood up. You'd attack a classmate over a pet? Yes, we deliberately left him at the Black Lake. So what'll you do with that wand? Dare you strike us? Daisy sneered, utterly convinced Luna wouldn't dare act. Go on, attack a classmate and you'll be expelled. Daisy taunted, then winked at Allison in triumph. Silencio. Daisy's smirk vanished. Horrified, she clutched her mouth. It was sealed shut. MMPH. She stared at Luna in terror. How dare you assault a classmate? Enraged, Allison raised her wand. She'd never imagined docile Luna would finally resist. Petrificus totalis. Thud. Allison's legs fused together. She collapsed, utterly immobile. Lovegood, how dare you? Ignoring them, Luna sprinted out of the common room. If she delayed, Norton might perish. The Black Lake and Forbidden Forest lay mere steps apart. Such a tiny creature stood little chance against those woods' dangers. To Luna, expulsion meant nothing compared to Norton's safety. He was her closest friend, her most precious companion. Other Ravenclaw students watched in awe as she dashed past them. Where are you going? The curfew's about to start. A prefect shouted, but Luna paid him no heed, racing toward the Black Lake. Chapter 224. For the sake of friends go forth bravely. Luna ran heedlessly out of the Ravenclaw common room. She dashed down the long corridors, right past Filch, and all the way out of Hogwarts Castle. Filch was utterly stunned. How dare a student act so brazenly, running right past him during curfew? He glanced at his pocket watch and saw it was already 8:59. There was no way this student could return to her common room before 9. Eager with excitement, he chased after her, his cat, Mrs. Norris, at his heels. He was determined to catch this audacious little witch with his own hands. Inside the kitchen, Xiaji, hand pausing midway through slicing noodles, he turned his gaze toward the castle gates and murmured, "You'll be all right." "What did you say?" Cedric abandoned his chopsticks, now twirling noodles onto his fork, his mouth already greasy. "Nothing." Xiaji smiled and lowered his head, resuming his noodle cutting. Soon, Luna reached the Black Lake. She headed toward the side, near the Forbidden Forest. According to them, Norbert must have been left somewhere around here. "Norbert!" Luna called out loudly. She shouted repeatedly, yet still saw no sign of her familiar companion. Her heart gradually sank. It seemed Norbert truly had entered the Forbidden Forest. Without hesitation, Luna sprinted into the woods. Filch arrived breathless, only to see Luna vanish into the forest. Frustrated, he clenched his fists. At night, Filch dared not approach the Forbidden Forest at all. He never imagined this student would actually venture inside. Panting heavily once more, he rushed back to the castle to report the news. A student had broken curfew and entered the Forbidden Forest. That alone warranted expulsion. Meanwhile, chaos erupted in the Ravenclaw common room. Allison and Daisy started causing trouble, and soon the other students noticed they'd been enchanted. Penelope Clearwater, Ravenclaw's head girl, effortlessly broke the spells binding them. "What on earth happened?" she asked, frowning. "It was Luna Lovegood. She attacked us. We must report her. She assaulted us for no reason at all. She absolutely deserves expulsion." Penelope had seen Luna flee earlier. Now she narrowed her eyes and declared, "You two return now. I'll fetch Professor Flitwick." With that, she hurried out of the common room. Meanwhile, Filch made his way towards Snape's underground office. Out of all Hogwarts professors, Snape was the one he got along with best. He greatly admired Snape's unrelenting methods of punishing students. Suddenly, footsteps echoed down the corridor ahead. Could there be another student roaming at night? Filch grew excited again, hastening his pace. "Oh, Professor Liss." Filch greeted her, somewhat disappointed. "Good evening, Mr. Filch. It's very kind of you to patrol at such a late hour." Liss smiled warmly. "Well, it's no trouble." Filch blushed. Truly, Xiaji Mother possessed immense charm. Though Filch harbored jealousy towards students, he held utmost respect for the professors, especially Liss, who was so courteous and beautiful. "Ahem, I just spotted a student ignoring curfew, leaving the castle, and even entering the Forbidden Forest. I couldn't follow him inside, so I'm seeking help from the professors," Filch explained. "Ajva what?" "A student entered the Forbidden Forest at night." Liss instantly turned serious. She knew full well how dangerous that place was. Especially at night. Could it possibly be her own son? "Leave this to me. I'll investigate." Liss swiftly changed direction, sprinting outside the castle. After Liss departed, Filch resolved to seek out Professor Snape once more. Yet halfway there, he encountered another professor. Professor Flitwick wore a grave expression, accompanied by Penelope Clearwater. "Oh, Mr. Filch, did you happen to see any students leave the castle?" Flitwick asked urgently. "Yes, sir. In fact, I was just on my way to inform the professors of this. Oh, I also met Professor Liss just now. She's already headed to the Forbidden Forest to search for that student." "Oh, I hope Miss Lovegood's all right. Entering the forest at night? Good heavens, utterly reckless." Flitwick murmured, then hurried outside. "Oh, Penelope, thank you for letting me know. Leave this matter to me. You may return to the common room now." Flitwick paused to speak to her. Though Filch had no idea what was unfolding, he knew someone was in deep trouble tonight. Any student facing misfortune brought him immense joy. With two professors now searching for that student, Filch abandoned his plan to inform Snape and resumed his patrol. With some luck, he might even catch a few night-roaming students. Upon entering the Forbidden Forest, Luna realized at once it differed vastly from daytime. Total darkness surrounded her. She couldn't see even an inch ahead. Mysterious rustling sounds constantly echoed around her, amplifying her fear. Yet for her friend's sake, she resolutely pressed onward. Wielding her wand, she relied on its faint lumos spell to wander aimlessly through the woods, searching for Norbert. She simply couldn't comprehend why Allison and the others hated her, why they hid her belongings just to tease her, but why target Norbert? He was utterly harmless, so adorable. Though the forest teemed with unknown dangers, she couldn't bring herself to abandon Norbert and leave. But the forest was vast, Norbert so tiny. How could she ever find him? Liss hurried to the forest's edge and plunged inside without hesitation. Earlier, she'd sent a message to her son. Xiaozhi replied he was sneaking snacks in the kitchen. Relieved to know he hadn't entered the forest, Liss still chose not to mention any students being there. She feared her son might get curious and follow. Given Liss's abilities, she feared no creatures within the forest, yet she still cast a shield charm. Having faced countless perils, she remained ever cautious. Upon entering, she spotted clear footprints. The students seemed panicked yet resolute, heading deeper into the woods. What could possibly draw her to such a perilous place? Regardless, as a professor, Liss couldn't allow any student to face danger. That would betray Professor Dumbledore's trust in her. She quickened her pace and soon heard distant shrieks from a girl and snarls from some animal. Liss's expression hardened. She sprinted onward. Luna had no idea where Norbert lay. She wandered blindly, waving her wand in hopes of sensing him. Unnoticed, she ventured deeper still. Night thickened. Dense foliage blotted out the moonlight. Pulling her robes tighter, Luna shivered. The cold intensified by the minute. Now, she dared not call Norbert's name. She crept forward cautiously, fearing to attract some lurking menace. Suddenly, atop a small hill, she spotted a tiny figure. Norbert stood there, gazing at her innocently. "Norbert!" Luna cried joyfully, rushing over. She couldn't believe she'd found him so easily. Overjoyed, she scooped him up. "Where on earth were you? Do you have any idea how worried I was?" Yet the forest remained perilous. Clutching Norbert close, she prepared to retreat. She'd memorized her route upon entering, ensuring a swift escape post-rescue. But then she heard it. Click-clack sounds all around her, like objects frantically striking each other. Uneasy, Luna raised her wand, its faint glow illuminating the surrounding darkness. She hurried backward. Should powerful dark creatures appear, she'd surely perish here. And indeed, her fears materialized. She'd been surrounded. Luna had never seen spiders this massive, each one as large as a carriage. Those unsettling click-clack noises stemmed from their pincers tapping together. "It's over." Luna lowered her wand resignedly. Against such giants, she stood no chance. Nor could she flee. Even without being encircled, no one could outrun these spiders' blistering speed. The largest spider, its 8 black eyes fixed on her, approached cautiously. These were the surviving acromantulas under Xiaozhi's command. Their intelligence ensured they remembered the terror he'd instilled in them. Though Luna seemed merely a defenseless human child, they dared not act rashly. After all, Xiaji, who'd annihilated them, was merely an 11 or 12-year-old boy. The leader dispatched a regular spider to test Luna's strength. That spider charged forth, determined to die if need be. Yet it was shocked to see the human child cowering on the ground, shrieking in fear. Clearly, this girl posed no threat, unlike that other boy. The spiders accelerated, no longer holding back. Luna lay motionless, watching the spiders draw near. Her expression remained calm. She released Norbert, hoping he'd escape, then shut her eyes. Roar! Just as she braced for death, a thunderous roar erupted before her. Chapter 225. Fleur Delacour. Luna will not receive any punishment. When Luna heard the roars, she immediately opened her eyes. Then she saw Norton, that tiny crumple-horned snorkack, suddenly block her path and begin to transform. From a cute, harmless little crumple-horned snorkack, it abruptly transformed into a giant silver lion the size of Hagrid's hut. Smack! The silver lion swatted one of the spiders into pieces with a single paw. Clack clack, several more giant eight-eyed spiders rushed forward, attempting to attack the massive silver lion with their venomous fangs. But the lion remained unfazed. It suddenly opened its enormous maw and crushed the lead spider in one bite. Then its eyes emitted a faint blue glow, firing two intensely blazing blue beams that pierced through all the other approaching spiders. Those struck by the beams instantly ignited, quickly turning to ash. Clack clack, the largest spider turned around and began fleeing frantically. It once again sensed that aura, the same demonic flame that had nearly wiped out their entire powerful species. In the blink of an eye, all the surrounding spiders vanished without a trace. Luna stared at this scene, still in shock. The giant silver lion slowly turned around, walked up to Luna, and lowered its head. Its eyes reverted to silver white, gazing quietly at Luna. Luna reached out and stroked its long mane, softly murmuring, "Thank you." By the time Chloe arrived at the scene, it was already too late. She witnessed the silver giant lion piercing through multiple spiders with its gaze. Then she saw the young witch standing in front of it. "Luna, is that really you?" Chloe exclaimed in surprise. She recognized Luna. During Christmas, this girl often came to play with Xiaji. Though somewhat eccentric, Chloe noticed that Xiaji seemed far more relaxed around her. Yet Luna had always given her the impression of being completely detached from the world. There was no way Chloe could associate this Luna with the audacious girl who defied Filch's curfew and sneaked into the Forbidden Forest, and with this quiet, gentle Luna. "Hello, Professor Chloe." Luna calmly turned around, her face still pale from lingering fear. Behind her, the giant silver lion reverted back into a cute, harmless little creature. It hopped over to Luna's side in 3 quick steps and affectionately rubbed its head against her leg. It was as if that fearsome, domineering lion had nothing to do with it at all. Why did you enter the Forbidden Forest at night? Do you realize how dangerous it is?" Chloe couldn't help but speak up. "I came looking for my friend. I couldn't let him get lost," Luna replied, picking up Norton from the ground. The little creature gazed at Chloe adorably and snorted, seemingly greeting her. From the silver-white glow that flashed during its transformation, Chloe instantly recognized it as one of Xiaji's alchemical creations. As expected, he treated each of his friends with such care. Luna's little creature was actually the very first successful alchemical puppet Xiaji had crafted, so it was certainly far more than just a cute pet. As a prototype, it had to possess formidable combat abilities, otherwise, it'd be quite embarrassing. Moreover, it was Xiaji himself who had remotely controlled it when it turned into a lion. Relying on her unique sixth sense and intuition, Luna instantly recognized Xiaji's presence, which was why she'd said, "Thank you, Xiaji." She wasn't foolish. She'd long known that this crumple-horned snorkack wasn't a real living being, but an alchemical life form crafted by Xiaji. He'd never tried to deceive her. In fact, he'd even created Norton right in front of her. She once had a wildly colorful dream. Everyone dismissed it as unrealistic and impossible. Yet only Xiaji helped her turn that dream into reality. Oh, Merlin's beard. Thank goodness you're all right, Miss Lovegood. Professor Phileas Flitwick arrived breathlessly. Professor Chloe, you saved her? Truly thank you so much. I can't even imagine what would have happened to one of our students after being attacked by giant spiders. Oh. Upon seeing the shattered spider remains crushed by the lion, Professor Flitwick's face lit up with relief. Unfortunately, he tried his best to hurry, but his legs were simply too short. For every single step Chloe took, he had to take 3 or 4. Chloe had no idea how to explain to him that this lion clearly originated from Xiaji, nor whether Xiaji wanted others to know about it. Thus, she simply nodded silently. Professor Flitwick, I'm so sorry. Seeing how genuinely worried he was, Luna felt a pang of guilt. This isn't your fault, Luna, if you don't mind me calling you that. As head of house, I failed to notice how isolated you were from the others. Professor Flitwick instead apologized to Luna. Now, let's head back. The Forbidden Forest at night feels downright unsettling. Professor Flitwick glanced at the spider corpses. He knew these creatures were social by nature. He feared they might return if left unattended. Only back at the castle would they truly be safe. Luna nodded and followed the professors back toward the castle. Along the way, she recounted everything that had happened. Professor Flitwick immediately understood. Earlier that evening, Xiaji had brought Luna to his office to discuss exactly this. He'd even planned to speak with concerned parties the following day, yet bullying had already resumed so swiftly. For once, Professor Flitwick was genuinely furious. He escorted Luna back to Ravenclaw Tower, where all the students were still awake, eager to learn what had occurred. Word had already spread. The mad girl had attacked her own roommate over a pet and then fled into the Forbidden Forest. According to Penelope, the prefect who'd returned, the mad girl had actually entered the forest. Thus, even if she hadn't died in the woods, Luna would undoubtedly be expelled from Hogwarts. Violating several of the school's strictest rules, assaulting a classmate, nocturnal trespassing, and unauthorized entry into the Forbidden Forest, she'd face at least 2 months of detention. Whispers filled the common room. The mad girl went way too far, attacking her own friend over a pet. She's always seemed so strange. I bet she's trying to curse others. She went into the Forbidden Forest alone. At night. I wonder if she's already dead. Do you think she'll become a ghost like Myrtle? I heard Myrtle haunts anyone who once mocked her. Could the mad girl end up haunting Allison and Daisy for life? Allison and Daisy had been sitting together the entire time. Hearing these unfavorable remarks about the mad girl, they beamed with delight. Yet upon hearing the possibility of Luna returning as a ghost to torment them eternally, their expressions turned pale. Subconsciously, they sensed they'd gone too far. They loathed the mad girl, but never wished her dead. They merely resented her eccentricity and her bold claim that Xiaji was her close friend. Creak, just as murmurs continued, the common room doors swung open. Smiling, Luna entered, cradling Norton. Allison and Daisy had initially panicked, but upon seeing Luna alive, their relief quickly turned back into smugness. Lovegood, how dare you attack me? You'll be expelled for this, mad girl. Daisy snarled, deliberately emphasizing the nickname. Luna had silenced her earlier, which had left her deeply humiliated. Mad girl, this is unacceptable. How could you harm your own friend over a pet? Our house can't tolerate someone who recklessly assaults others. Luna won't face any punishment. Just as the students began heaping accusations upon Luna, a familiar voice rang out from outside. Professor Flitwick, short in stature, had been hidden behind Luna earlier. None had noticed him. Allison Judith, Daisy Crichton. You've left me utterly disappointed. Professor Flitwick thundered. Professor? Allison and Daisy stared, baffled. Luna was the one who'd broken rules and attacked others, so why was he scolding them? The entire common room fell silent. Everyone wondered why the mad girl wouldn't be punished. Oh, haven't you realized yet? Merlin's beard. You still failed to grasp your own wrongdoing. Professor Flitwick waved his arms frantically. Merlin's mustache. Had Luna not come to my office this evening with her friend Xiaji, I'd have remained completely unaware that bullying exists within Ravenclaw. Bullying. The students repeated the word in confusion. Her friend Xiaji? They hadn't expected Luna to have told the truth. Xiaji truly was her friend, and he'd even spoken to Professor Flitwick about her mistreatment. Some of you hid Luna's belongings, didn't you? You even deliberately abandoned her pet, her friend Norton, by the Black Lake. Merlin's beard. Luna preferred walking barefoot in the cold rather than bring this up to me. How long have you tormented her? How could you do such a thing? Professor Flitwick was livid. Oh, I'd always believed my house was kind and compassionate. This is deeply disheartening. His face fell with sorrow. Allison and Daisy's faces turned deathly pale. Events were spiraling in a direction utterly unfavorable to them. Chapter 226. A female version of Snape at Gryffindor. Classmates, what I want to emphasize is that you may not like someone or even despise her, but no matter what, you must never bully her, Professor Flitwick said earnestly. Well, no one can ever earn everyone's favor. Even Xiaji, the prodigy of Gryffindor, isn't an exception. In fact, many Slytherins wish nothing but ill fortune upon him.
Right.
It might be hard for you all to understand what it feels like to be disliked, but I know it all too well, Professor Flitwick recalled sadly. Back when I was a student, I was sorted into Ravenclaw. Yet, what you may not know is that I almost wasn't allowed to attend Hogwarts at all. Because of my short stature and peculiar appearance, they spent ages trying to determine whether I was actually a goblin. Thankfully, in the end, I was permitted to enroll. But how could one possibly expect a bunch of mischievous kids to leave a short, odd-looking classmate alone? Oh, the unfair treatment I endured back then still brings me heartache just thinking about it. Even though I studied tirelessly and received perfect scores in every subject, I was still discriminated against by many fellow witches. That situation only improved after I graduated and returned to Hogwarts as a teacher. Without a doubt, I fully understand what it's like to be looked down upon, to be loathed. Classmates, that feeling truly is dreadful. Therefore, I hope that in Ravenclaw, such incidents never happen again. Luna is such a kind-hearted girl. You may not like her personality, but at the very least, I beg you, please don't harm her. At this point, overcome with emotion, Professor Flitwick pulled out a handkerchief and dabbed at his reddening eyes. Perhaps Luna's plight resonated deeply with his own painful memories from the past. This made Professor Flitwick extremely sentimental. Allison, Daisy, though Luna pleaded with me not to punish you, you must still bear some consequences for your actions. I hereby declare that each of you shall lose 20 points. Yes, that means Ravenclaw loses a total of 40 points. Additionally, you'll each serve half a month of detention. Professor Lockhart currently needs help, so starting next week, each evening, you'll report to him for detention. Understood. In the end, Professor Flitwick remained soft-hearted. Apart from deducting points, he only imposed half a month of detention. To avoid leaving any psychological scars on his students, he deliberately avoided assigning them to Professor Snape and instead sent Allison and Daisy to their beloved Professor Lockhart. Predictably, Allison and Daisy's expressions darkened, but deep down, their hatred toward Luna intensified. They both plotted how to exact revenge later. Suddenly, a pleasant voice rang out from the doorway. I hope all of you treat Luna kindly. I refuse to hear of her being bullied ever again. Every student turned their heads. Standing at the door was none other than Xiaji. Why you? How did you get in? Penelope, the prefect, asked in disbelief. Oh, didn't one need to answer a riddle correctly to enter? Answered the door knocker's question, and it opened for me. Xiaji walked in slowly, hands behind his back, graceful as an old gentleman whose name starts with G. Oh, Xiaji, I knew you belonged in Ravenclaw. Professor Flitwick waved his fist excitedly, filled with regret. Why hadn't the Sorting Hat placed him in Ravenclaw instead? After all, not just anyone could answer the door knocker's riddle. It required certain Ravenclaw traits to decipher it. Even a genius like Hermione Granger wouldn't have managed to answer a single question. Her thinking lacked that distinct Ravenclaw flair. I hope I'm not interrupting your speech, Professor Flitwick. I came here to speak to a few people specifically. Xiaoji's gaze swept across all the students. Though only 12 years old, his eyes gleamed with an intimidating chill. Even an upperclassman like Penelope felt an overwhelming sense of pressure. Luna is my friend. I hope she won't be bullied again. Otherwise, Xiaoji's pupils darkened, seeming to pierce straight into their souls. He deliberately paused while looking at Allison and Daisy. Everyone was stunned. None perceived him as just a 12-year-old boy. They saw a lion on the prowl, searching for prey. His message was clear. Luna falls under my protection. Try to mess with her, and you'll have to get past me first. Sure enough, those rebellious students like Allison and Daisy promptly lowered their heads, their vengeful thoughts instantly extinguished. Thank you, Xiaoji, Luna said sweetly, cradling Not. It's my duty. We're friends, aren't we? Xiaoji replied with a gentle smile.
Ah.
Xiaoji, I just remembered. You were out past curfew last night. Professor Flitwick cleared his throat. I didn't see you at all tonight. That's quite all right, Professor. Professor Liss summoned me to her office. I merely passed by Ravenclaw Tower on my way back. Oh, with a professor accompanying you. That's perfectly fine. Professor Flitwick exhaled in relief, completely oblivious to the glaring inconsistencies in Xiaoji's story. Passing by Ravenclaw Tower on the way to Professor Liss's office? Preposterous. After tonight's events, I'll probably need to reassign Luna's dormitory, Professor Flitwick murmured softly. Professor, may I have a dormitory all to myself? I realize this request might be rather. Oh, Luna, staying alone will only isolate you further. You won't make any friends that way. But I already have friends, Luna replied, glancing towards Xiaoji. Professor, one doesn't need many friends. 1 or 2 is quite enough. Oh, Luna. Professor Flitwick was once again moved. Back at Hogwarts, he'd faced constant discrimination, yet still managed to keep just 1 or 2 friends, one of whom was none other than Professor McGonagall today. Very well, I grant your request. There are plenty of empty dorms anyway. Professor Flitwick agreed to Luna's plea. Thank you, Professor. Rest assured, I won't feel lonely at all. Luna twirled a beautifully crafted ring on her finger and smiled sweetly. For Xiaoji, those carefree weekend days vanished in the blink of an eye. Today was Monday, and Gryffindor students chattered excitedly. This afternoon marked the first defense against the dark arts class taught by his mother. Having witnessed Xiaoji's abilities, they all eagerly anticipated his mother's skills. Moreover, first years who'd already taken her class reported it was both enjoyable and enlightening. Xiaoji himself felt no worries. After all, Liz had once been the top assassin within the mysterious organization's Shadow Division, and she graduated at the top of her class from Durmstrang. Teaching defense against the dark arts perfectly suited her expertise. Truth be told, had this post not been cursed, she'd have been the ideal candidate by far. Cassandra and Hermione arrived early. Though they'd met Liz at Xiaoji's home, they'd yet to witness her true prowess. They too felt quite eager. Yawning widely, Xiaoji stretched and climbed the stairs. Liz's classroom was located on the 7th floor. Had he not feared causing public scandal, he'd have simply flown straight up. Humph. What were you up to last night? Cassandra shot him a glare. Seeing his lethargic demeanor only infuriated her further. Nothing much. I stayed up late studying a potion recipe, Xiaoji replied smoothly, utterly unflustered. Oh, I'd have thought you were chatting late into the night with some Ravenclaw girl. What Ravenclaw girl? Xiaoji feigned confusion, scratching his head. TSK. How bold. Wandering into Ravenclaw Tower in the dead of night to stand up for a friend. Cassandra eyed him as though he were trash. Word of Xiaoji's heroic actions that night had spread rapidly among Ravenclaw students, eventually reaching every corner of Hogwarts. So naturally, Cassandra knew of them too. Ahem, friends are meant to help one another, Xiaoji declared nonchalantly. Though Cassandra's glare was undeniably thrilling, he felt absolutely nothing. Truly, he lacked any such peculiar inclinations. Humph. You rascal, I can't tell what's truth and what's false. Cassandra strode into the classroom. Hermione walked past Xiaji, nose buried in a book, yet he distinctly heard her loudly exclaim, "Tisk." Xiaji merely shrugged and followed them in, shamelessly squeezing between them. Utterly devoid of any self-awareness, his cheekiness rivaled Hogwarts' very stone walls. Cassandra frowned but ultimately couldn't bring herself to shoo him away. Liz had already arrived, and upon witnessing this scene from atop the podium, her lips twitched faintly. She had no idea where Xiaji picked up such shamelessness, but it suited her fine. If he remained this way, she'd never have to worry about never bearing grandchildren. This lesson involved both Gryffindor and Slytherin, two rival houses, studying together. Students from each house sat separately, glaring at one another across the room. Liz ignored this palpable hostility. After all, Professor McGonagall had warned her. Simply teach well and ensure they didn't start brawling. Greetings, everyone. I'm Liz, your assistant professor for defense against the dark arts. Please feel free to address me as Professor Liz. Liz gave a brief self-introduction. Without further delay, she commenced the lesson. Does anyone here know what creature this is? Liz lifted a cloth covering an iron cage. Inside dwelt a creature resembling a goblin, sporting fiery red hair that resembled a red hat. It gripped a massive club, banging it rhythmically against the cage bars. Miss Granger. As usual, Hermione raised her hand eagerly to answer. This is a red cap. They leave their tracks wherever blood has been spilled. Typically lurking within castle dungeons or battlefield trenches, they ambush lost travelers. They dwell in battleground burrows or places soaked in human blood. Though easily driven off via spells or charms, they remain perilous to lone muggles. They'll attempt to bludgeon them to death in pitch-black darkness. Correct answer, Miss Granger. Liz exclaimed warmly. Miss Granger's reply was spot on. Gryffindor gains 5 points. Hermione beamed with delight. Yet not a single Slytherin raised their hand. Did you all neglect to review today's material? Disappointing, Slytherin loses 5 points. Huh. Slytherin students instantly sensed trouble brewing. Staring at Liz in her crimson robes, they saw not a teacher but a female counterpart to Snape, a Gryffindor version of the infamous potions master. Chapter 227. Harry I became Malfoy's rival? That girl is still Xiaji. Myself? Sure enough, what followed was utterly absurd. Liz's behavior was even more Snape-like than Snape himself. Miss Granger, your second answer was correct. Gryffindor gains 5 points. Mr. Malfoy, why do you stand so unsteadily when answering questions? Slytherin loses 5 points. Oh. Xiaji managed to cast the notoriously difficult shield charm. Gryffindor gains 5 points. Mr. Goyle, are you trying to shove your wand up Mr. Crabbe's nostril? Slytherin loses 5 points. Oh. Miss Vole, splendid floating charm. Now those red caps can no longer harm you. What a brilliant idea. Gryffindor gains 5 points. Miss Parkinson, you're a wizard, not a baboon wielding a stick. Slytherin loses 5 points. Throughout the entire lesson, the Gryffindor students were absolutely ecstatic. Harry was overjoyed. When had they ever seen Slytherin being treated so harshly? Normally, it was old Snape himself who targeted Gryffindor students like this. Even Neville managed to earn 5 points for Gryffindor that day. His chubby round face turned bright red with excitement. Yet, despite constantly deducting and awarding points against Slytherin, Liz's teaching quality remained impeccable. The students learned at least dozens of ways to deal with red caps. What Xiaji valued most, and what was most important, was this. No matter what happened, one must stay calm. Only by staying calm and composed could one perform to their true ability. Otherwise, even if one knew how to cast obstruction charm or shield charm, nervousness would inevitably lead to mistakes. Of course, it was still far too difficult for second-year students to cast such spells. Even Xiaji's own DA members had to exert tremendous effort just to manage them. Thus, Liz taught the second years several simple yet highly practical spells. For instance, the Tarantella charm, which made red caps dance uncontrollably upon approach, and the wobbly legs charm, which rendered them unsteady on their feet. Even second years could easily cast these minor, mischievous spells. Never underestimate these little spells. Though their power is limited, they're often far more effective than recklessly using powerful spells without thought. With these words, Liz concluded what had been an unforgettable defense against the dark arts lesson. Undoubtedly, it was a brilliant class. Even Slytherin students, whose faces turned green from all the deductions, couldn't deny it. Compared to Professor Liss, who even was Professor Lockhart, completely unknown. Xiaji smiled at his mother, congratulating her on the resounding success of her first second-year defense against the dark arts lesson, then exited the classroom. They still had herbology next. Yet, just as Xiaji and the others left, Malfoy stepped forward to block them. Draco Malfoy, finally showing some courage? So, have you finally dared to challenge me? Xiaji drew his ebony wand, waving it so it whistled through the air. Malfoy's legs nearly gave out. Who in their right mind would duel Xiaji? And no, I'm not here to duel you, Malfoy stammered nervously. Many times, he'd wanted to turn around and flee at all costs. But recalling that nameless girl in Snape's office, he stopped. He longed to see her again. Last time, he'd frightened her. This time, he hoped she'd tell him her name. Only by asking Xiaji could he find her. He sensed that both Xiaji and Professor Snape had been acting suspiciously lately, harboring many secrets. One of them must concern that girl. So, what brings you here, Malfoy? You should realize that aside from me, nearly everyone here has suffered at your hands. You're certainly unwelcome. Malfoy's already pale face turned deathly white. I'm here to ask about that girl. Malfoy mustered courage to speak. A girl? Xiaji stroked his chin, studying Malfoy curiously, then glanced toward Harry, who stood by watching the scene. Do you mean the girl I saw in Snape's office that day? Red hair, green eyes? About this tall? Xiaji gestured with his hands. Instantly, Harry's face turned pale. Malfoy wants to find me? What does he want? Harry eyed Malfoy suspiciously. He sensed ill intent. Exactly. So you've met her. Malfoy exclaimed excitedly. Last time, I was too forward. I think I scared her, so I hope to see her again. Noticing Xiaji repeatedly glancing at Harry, Malfoy finally noticed him, the silent onlooker. Potter, this has nothing to do with you. This is between me and Xiaji. In front of Xiaji, Malfoy acted meek as a quail, yet, facing Potter, he lashed out fiercely. That instantly left Harry fuming with rage. Malfoy, you really can't do anything without Harry. Him? What's Potter's connection to her? Malfoy asked anxiously. Their bond is extremely close, Xiaji grinned mischievously. Harry glanced at Xiaji's smirk and inwardly groaned, but dared not speak up. Who knew what other mischief awaited? Yet, Xiaji spoke truthfully. Whether Malfoy saw Harry depended entirely on Harry's consent. After all, they were one and the same. Without Harry's approval, Harry could never appear. Their bond was indeed unbreakable. So, that makes us enemies. Malfoy glared at Harry. Just you wait, Potter. I'll prove to her I'm better than you. With that threat, Malfoy left with Goyle and Crabbe, leaving Harry standing there, torn between laughter and tears. Harry. Seems Malfoy's taken you for his romantic rival. Our rival? Oh. Xiaji. Harry stood utterly stunned. Without reason, he'd become Malfoy's rival, and the girl in question was himself. The world seemed utterly bewildering. Suddenly, Harry questioned everything. Who was he? Where was he? Why was he here? What did he intend to do? Where was he headed? Meanwhile, Ron had watched Malfoy's fury unfold. He tried piecing it together. Malfoy's fallen for the girl Harry becomes. Now he thinks Harry's his rival, because he assumes Harry likes Harry too. After much thought, Ron finally grasped it. Merlin's trousers. Harry, Malfoy's got feelings for you. Quiet, Ron. Harry frantically silenced Ron's outburst. The Weasley twins were approaching if they learned. Well, I don't think this is a bad thing, right? What do you mean? Harry stared at Ron oddly. I mean, why not turn into a girl? Go on a date with Malfoy, then reject him heartlessly? Ron's freckles flushed crimson with excitement. His face would be priceless. Absolutely not. I refuse to turn into a girl ever again. Harry shoved Ron away furiously. What awful ideas were these? Let Malfoy loathe him. That suited their mutual hostility just fine. Sacrificing his dignity to date Malfoy? Impossible. Ahem. Harry, you're not mad at me, right? All this happened because of my potion. Xiaji gazed at Harry tenderly. Harry shivered. No, I was greedy myself. It's not your fault.
Ah.
I'm sorry. But really, if you could reverse this side effect, it'd be great. Hermione spoke gently, uneasy at the thought. But I can't help you there. I warned him the antidote had side effects. He insisted on drinking it immediately. I had no choice. Xiaji feigned helplessness. Thinking of boys turning into girls, Xiaji recalled Tom. He rubbed his temples. Tom had been acting increasingly strange lately. Midnight. Utterly silent. Xiaji locked his doors and windows, summoned Isiri, and teleported from his dorm into the Chamber of Secrets. Inside, Tom sat primly on a bed, studying a magical tome intently. No Slytherins were present, likely resting elsewhere. Ahem, I brought food and fresh clothes. Tom looked up at Xiaji. Her oversized robes had a wide neckline, and upon lifting her head, they slipped down. Why won't you wear the clothes I brought? Xiaji frowned. I can't wear those, Tom replied helplessly. Could you teach me? She truly had no idea how. Huh? I've been single for 30 years. You expect me to teach you how to wear women's undergarments? Are you joking? Chapter 228. Slytherin Shock. But in reality, in his past life, with the help of nearly 200 gigabytes worth of study materials stored on his D drive, Xiaji had acquired considerable knowledge on this subject. Therefore, to prevent Tom from continuing to be such an eyesore, Xiaji had no choice but to endure the awkwardness and give Tom a proper lesson. Oh, you truly know a lot, Tom remarked. Now, Tom looked much better. At least wearing a full dress was far preferable to that oversized robe that constantly threatened to expose everything. I know a bit, Xiaji replied nonchalantly. I really wonder where you picked up all this knowledge. That's a secret, Tom. The current me really shouldn't be called Tom anymore. Besides, I dislike that name. Tom intended to choose a new one. Huh? Change your name? Xiaji thought Tom was perfectly fine as is. No. Tom is such a common name, and it disgusts me. Most importantly, it's not feminine enough. TSK. Xiaji realized Tom had indeed been acting increasingly strangely lately. After his soul had been altered by Xiaji, some peculiar transformations occurred. Tom voluntarily chose a female body upon reincarnation, and now her way of thinking was gradually shifting toward femininity. For instance, her desire for more feminine name and pretty dresses, it seemed her soul was slowly evolving into that of a woman. Xiaji suddenly felt somewhat guilty. If Voldemort ever saw Tom in such a curvy, feminine form, he'd probably go mad. Well, you can think about it at your own pace. Xiaji rubbed his forehead, preparing to head back to bed. Won't you help me think of one? Tom gazed at Xiaji with disappointment. That sorrowful look made Xiaji feel deeply uneasy. Tom, naming is something one must do oneself to hold any real significance. Xiaji refused. Tom was acting weirder by the moment. He really shouldn't stay here any longer. A rustling sound emerged from within Slytherin's statue, and soon a massive green serpent slithered out from its mouth. Slytherin's fragmented soul drifted forth from the statue's eyes, gently floating atop the basilisk's head. Though the basilisk obeyed Xiaji's commands first and foremost, Slytherin remained its original master. Absent any orders from Xiaji, it still answered to Slytherin. Xiaji, it's hungry, Slytherin remarked casually. All right, Xiaji retrieved plenty of fresh pork from within his ring. Though the basilisk preferred eating giant spiders, it dared not disobey Xiaji's commands, so it swallowed the pork obediently before curling up beneath Slytherin's massive statue to rest. Seeing Xiaji quietly observing the basilisk, Slytherin couldn't resist boasting. What do you think of the Serpent King I raised? Xiaji glanced at the basilisk lazily, digesting its meal. Just average. Just average? Slytherin grew furious. This was the Serpent King he'd painstakingly cultivated using the exact methods employed by the vile Herpo. Years of effort had gone into this. And yet she called it merely average? It's an immensely powerful dark magical creature. If not for your sealing of its petrification magic, it could have turned anyone to stone with a single stare. Slytherin protested indignantly. T.S. Old man, there's actually something I've been wondering about and forgot to ask. Ask away. There's nothing related to the basilisk I don't know. Well, rooster eggs must be quite common ingredients, right? How exactly do you produce them? This had been Xiaji's biggest confusion during the basilisk's incubation. Nowhere in Slytherin's writings did he find any mention of rooster egg production. Huh? Who told you they're common ingredients? Slytherin responded. Yet if they weren't common, why wouldn't your notes contain any methods for obtaining them? Oh, though rooster eggs are indeed precious, their acquisition method is quite simple. Simple? Precisely. Just raise countless roosters and wait for them to lay eggs. Rooster eggs are laid by roosters. That's basic common knowledge, so I didn't bother documenting it. Common knowledge? How the hell is that common knowledge? There are no such things as rooster eggs. How could roosters possibly lay eggs? That's precisely why they're so precious. I waited over 30 years just to obtain a single rooster egg. Slytherin gazed proudly at his emerald basilisk. This creature had consumed 3 decades of his lifeblood. So that's how it is. Xiaji felt his illusions crumble. Turns out you just raise a whole flock of roosters and patiently wait for them to lay eggs. Sounds perfectly logical. What if I told you I've mastered mass-producing rooster eggs? Me, Salazar Slytherin, one of history's greatest wizards, failed to achieve mass rooster egg production. And you think you can? Slytherin scoffed. Roosters have low egg-laying rates. Why not simply transform them into hens? Xiaji casually suggested. It's not that simple, Slytherin smirked mockingly, then abruptly fell silent. He suddenly realized it actually seemed feasible. All one needed was a potion altering a rooster's physiology to turn it into a hen. Fundamentally, it remained a rooster. In theory, this method could indeed yield rooster eggs. Have you tried this method? Slytherin asked eagerly. Of course. Otherwise, why would I mention it? And what was the outcome? Slytherin pressed anxiously. It went splendidly. I successfully incubated a little basilisk. It's probably far superior to yours. Xiaji thought of Little Red nestled within his sleeve. As a cold-blooded creature, Little Red somehow radiated warmth, its entire body crimson, undeniably stronger than Slytherin's green basilisk. Superior to mine? Humph. Slytherin sneered. This one took me 30 years and countless rare magical ingredients to perfect. How could it possibly compare to some half-baked prototype Xiaji chanced upon? Well, take a look yourself. Xiaji lifted his sleeve, revealing a tiny red serpent tightly coiled around his arm. Eyes shut, it slept soundly atop his hand. 2 tiny protrusions adorned its head, resembling miniature horns. What is this? Slytherin's spirit drew near, studying the creature intently. The more he observed, the more he sensed its extraordinary nature. Good heavens, this can't be possible. Slytherin stood stunned. With his expertise, he recognized clearly. This little basilisk far surpassed his own. How did you achieve this? Slytherin demanded, unwilling to accept defeat. His own Serpent King, born of immense effort and 30 years of labor, seemed almost a half-finished experiment compared to this crimson marvel in Xiaji's grasp. It's quite simple. We must begin by cultivating roosters capable of egg-laying. At this point, Xiaji's weariness vanished. He feared no theft of his methods by Slytherin. The coarse soul magic remained utterly unstealable. Xiaji had no intention of revealing it anyway. Besides, Slytherin now existed merely as a fragmented soul. He merely sought knowledge exchange, driven purely by curiosity, with no ulterior motives. Ah, truly worthy of being my descendant. Such brilliance and ingenuity, you've achieved the unthinkable. Slytherin swelled with pride once more. Xiaji rolled his eyes. Whenever outclassed, Slytherin claimed descent as justification. This old man's shamelessness rivaled even AQ's psychological triumphs. My mother can't speak Parseltongue. That only proves your father was my descendant, Slytherin declared confidently. Well, there's no way to disprove that, Xiaji shrugged helplessly. Maybe tomorrow he'd ask his own mother whether his dad could converse with serpents. Xiaji utterly rejected any familial link to this ancient ghost. His Parseltongue ability stemmed purely from his system. Am I truly Slytherin's descendant?
Ding.
Upon activating your Parseltongue talent, minute alterations occurred within your bloodline. You merely share similar genetics. Xiaji nodded. That made sense. Wait, minute alterations? Meaning?
Ding.
Essentially, though you lack direct blood ties, your lineages have grown exceedingly similar. Naturally, Parseltongue could only manifest via hereditary transmission. Those possessing it inevitably shared blood traits. Feeling observed by a millennia-old specter, Xiaji grew uneasy. Finally rousing from sleep, Little Red flicked its tongue at him. Typical behavior. Hungry upon waking, sleepy after eating, still in vital growth phases. Xiaji produced a vial of unicorn milk blended with phoenix blood, feeding it to Little Red. Oh, who'd have imagined you'd possess a phoenix? Slytherin mused. Gaining their trust isn't easy at all. Had I possessed one too, perhaps I'd have birthed a unique basilisk variant. Ignoring Slytherin's reveries and Tom's pondering over new names, Xiaji finished feeding Little Red, summoned Isiri, and returned to his quarters. Thanks to Slytherin's interruptions, Xiaji hadn't anticipated returning so late. By the time he reached his dormitory, it was past 3 a.m. Groaning in distress, Xiaji acknowledged his usual resilience against fatigue, yet sleep deprivation remained deeply unpleasant. Especially since tomorrow brought a Quidditch match, Gryffindor versus Ravenclaw. Rumor had it Gryffindor fielded a new seeker, a girl named Autumn Zhang, if you recalled correctly. Lost in such thoughts, Xiaji drifted off to sleep. Chapter 229, Qiu Zhang. I admit my heart has been stirred. Today was the day Ravenclaw faced off against Gryffindor. A gloomy atmosphere hung over Ravenclaw. There was no chance of winning, absolutely none. As long as Gryffindor had Xiaji on their side, victory was impossible for Ravenclaw. That was what everyone thought. Ravenclaw hadn't even managed to beat Slytherin, a team whose entire roster rode 2001 brooms. How could they possibly stand a chance against Gryffindor? In truth, Ravenclaw wasn't entirely without hope. If their seeker managed to outpace the legendary Harry Potter and catch the Golden Snitch before Xiaji and Cassandra Vole could rack up 150 points, then Ravenclaw could pull off a miracle. Yet that probability was just as low. Everyone knew Harry Potter's skill. He'd never lost a match, and he always ended them by catching the snitch. Ravenclaw's newly recruited seeker was their only hope. But could she actually deliver? Qiu Zhang felt an invisible weight pressing down on her. Even the veteran players struggled to breathe under it, let alone a newcomer like her. How unlucky. Her very first match was against Gryffindor, the undisputed powerhouse, and now she was expected to single-handedly secure victory for her team. She felt like she'd floated into the Great Hall for breakfast. Staring at the slice of bread lightly buttered before her, she found herself utterly uninterested in eating. Nerves churned her stomach, making it impossible to swallow. She couldn't help but glance toward the Gryffindor table, where she saw Xiaji deftly wielding chopsticks to eat a bowl of noodles. His face glowed with pure joy. It seemed this was his usual expression whenever he ate. Could I have a bowl of noodles just like Xiaji's? Qiu Zhang murmured softly. Instantly, a bowl appeared before her. They were thin noodles in a strangely golden broth, topped with a simple fried egg. Finely chopped green onions were evenly sprinkled on top, looking utterly tempting. She picked up the chopsticks beside the bowl and awkwardly tried to grab some noodles. Her parents had taught her how to use chopsticks as a child, but it had been ages since she'd tried. The noodles were delightfully chewy and flavorful. She lifted the bowl and took a sip. Instantly, the rich, aromatic broth flooded her mouth. It was absolutely delicious. The sheer pleasure of the meal temporarily drowned out her anxiety about the upcoming match and the crushing pressure on her shoulders. Not far away sat Luna Lovegood, who wasn't eating at all. Instead, she fiddled with a bizarre hat that resembled a lion's head. Her friend Xiaoji was playing in the match today, so she planned to wear this hat to cheer him on. Of course, in the eyes of most Ravenclaw students, this made her an outright traitor. But how could anyone blame Luna? Ever since enrolling, Ravenclaw had never given her any sense of belonging. She'd always been isolated, met only with cold stares and mockery. She'd never made a single friend there. Thus, Luna saw nothing wrong with her actions. She was simply supporting someone she cared about. Ravenclaw's team? Sorry, she barely knew them. Respect must be mutual, after all. As Qiu Zhang ate, her attention gradually shifted to Luna. She knew Luna was Xiaoji's friend. She'd seen her in the common room that night. She'd witnessed Xiaoji enter Ravenclaw's common room and confidently stand up for his friend. Who could resist such a powerful and handsome boy? He was probably the first Gryffindor to ever set foot in Ravenclaw's common room in nearly a century. She stole another glance at Xiaoji at the Gryffindor table. She envied Luna, who wouldn't want a friend like him. Somehow, she found herself carrying her bowl over to Luna's seat. Did you make this yourself?
Yes.
I started last night. Luna glanced at Qiu Zhang before returning to her task. Lots of bothersome gnats are swirling around her head. You seem pretty troubled. Was a doomed match considered trouble? Qiu Zhang helplessly shook her head. You're Ravenclaw's new seeker, right? You recognize me? Qiu Zhang was surprised. She'd been a reserve player for a while now, rarely getting any playing time. Only after the original seeker left did she finally earn a spot. Most people hardly noticed a reserve like her. Of course I recognize you. I watch every Ravenclaw match and cheer for you all, though today I'll be cheering for my own friend instead. Luna spoke casually, showing no shame at being labeled a traitor. I think adding a transfiguration charm to those eyes would make them look better, Qiu Zhang couldn't help but suggest. It'd make the lion's eyes seem much livelier. Luna looked at her in surprise. Really? But I can't cast that spell. I can do it a little. At Christmas, I used it to decorate my mom's house. Qiu Zhang took out her wand and tapped the lion's eyes. Instantly, their color shifted from plain yellow to a gradient of hues. They indeed looked far more lively now. Oh, thank you. This really does look much better. Luna beamed. A perfectly executed transfiguration spell. A gentle voice spoke from behind Luna. Qiu Zhang jumped in fright. Xiaoji had somehow appeared right behind them. I can't cast this spell. Qiu Zhang helped me with it, Luna said happily upon seeing him. Thank you for helping Luna. I mean, few people ever bother to help her. Xiaoji spoke earnestly. Luna had always been lonely, ostracized even within Ravenclaw. Even after he'd stood up for her once, things hadn't improved much. Still, at least no one dared bully her anymore. Seeing others willing to approach and help her made Xiaoji genuinely happy. It's nothing. I just happened to know the spell. Meanwhile, Qiu Zhang's heart raced. This was her first conversation with Xiaoji. She cursed herself for being so flustered. She could barely form coherent sentences.
Oh.
You also like noodles? Wait, your bowl's setup is identical to mine. Xiaoji noticed her noodles and exclaimed joyfully. Why, what a coincidence. Flustered, Qiu Zhang stood up. I've got a match soon, so I'll be going now. Blushing furiously, she hurried away from the Ravenclaw table and rushed toward the pitch. You should let food settle before exercising. Why is she rushing off like that? Besides, she hasn't even finished eating. Wasting food's a sin. Xiaoji shook his head regretfully. He'd wanted to chat more with this girl from his own hometown. After all these years of time travel, surrounded by blondes and blue eyes, it was comforting to speak with someone of his own ethnicity. Xiaoji, I think she likes you. She's just shy, Luna stated calmly. Nonsense. Don't you like me too? Luna's composed expression instantly flushed crimson. She grabbed her lion hat and dashed off after him.
Ding.
Even the system can't stand it. 2 people chased off at once. Total failure. Absolute disaster. You know nothing. This is called strategy. The match ended just as expected. Xiaji and Cassandra remained unstoppable scoring machines. Even Slytherin's entire roster of 2001 broom riders couldn't contain them, let alone Ravenclaw's underpowered team. Though Harry ultimately caught the snitch, sealing Gryffindor's victory, Zhang gave him quite the run for his money. She employed the simplest yet most effective tactic. She stuck to him like glue. Wherever Harry flew, she followed. When Harry feigned spotting the snitch and accelerated, Zhang did the same, only for him to pull off a brilliant feint. She nearly crashed to the ground, but her decent flying skills and slower broom saved her from injury. Still, she persisted, shadowing him relentlessly. In the end, when Harry finally spotted the snitch, he nearly lost it to her. At that point, Gryffindor led by only 140 points. Had Zhang caught it, Ravenclaw could have staged a comeback. Regrettably, her broom and skill couldn't match Harry's. Harry was deeply impressed by this pretty girl who'd given him such a hard time. Even amidst Gryffindor's celebrations, he stole glances at her dejected figure. She was beautiful, just as captivating as Xia Ji.
Wait.
Why am I thinking this? Damn it. Harry scratched his head in distress. This was completely out of character for him. The match ended with Ravenclaw's loss. Defeated, Zhang trudged back to the changing room, broom in hand. She'd given it her all, yet still failed to outpace Harry and catch the snitch. So close to a miracle. She clenched her fists in frustration. Blame that news seeker. Exactly. She was so close to the snitch, closer than Harry Potter. How'd she miss it? Right. No skill at all. Why is she even on the team? We could have won. At that distance, I could have caught it too. What was she even thinking? Pfft, I've disliked her since day one. She only got picked 'cause she's pretty. Cruel whispers pierced Zhang's ears, bringing tears to her eyes. That's not true. I tried so hard. My broom just wasn't fast enough. I earned my spot through my own efforts. The cold stares from her own teammates crushed her spirit. I did my best. You played wonderfully. That was a brilliant strategy. I saw everything. Thank goodness Harry's broom was faster. Otherwise, we'd have lost today. A gentle voice suddenly spoke beside her. She turned to see Xiaji, carrying 2 brooms. He smiled warmly. Don't mind what they say. You truly played excellently. Not many can push Harry to that extent. He's singing your praises right now. Everyone who strives deserves respect. Why can't they understand that? Xiaji added softly. Thank you. Tears finally spilled from Zhang's eyes. It was ironic, comforting words from her rival, but they warmed her heart. She suddenly understood why Luna wore that lion hat to support Xiaji despite defying Ravenclaw entirely. She admitted it. Her heart had stirred. Chapter 230. Zhang, if you can do it, you do it. If not, stop talking. Xiaji. Cassandra Vole called out to him from a distance. Hearing this, Xiaji responded and then smiled at Zhang before running back to his friends. Zhang wiped away her tears and forced a smile, then headed toward the changing room. Along the way, although the Ravenclaws continued to mock and taunt her, she suddenly realized she no longer felt as upset as before. You get used to it eventually. They used to say the same things to me. Luna's ethereal voice rang out from behind her. Luna still wore her distinctive lion hat, its eyes gleaming with life. Don't you care about it at all? Luna lowered her head thoughtfully. They're not my friends. Why should I care? Asterisk, that's true. They're not my friends either. Why should I care? Asterisk, it was as if Zhang had finally grasped something. She suddenly noticed how endearing Luna could be. Roger Davies hurried over and shouted at Zhang, if only you'd reacted a bit faster, we might have turned the tables. If you're not up to the task, I'll put someone else in next time. Roger Davies served as Ravenclaw's Quidditch captain. He needed someone to blame for their defeat. A normal loss wouldn't have been a problem, but they'd come so close to turning it around. If only Qiu Zhang had managed to catch the golden snitch before Harry. Thus, they conveniently ignored the fact that Harry's broomstick was simply faster than Qiu Zhang's. Roger assumed Qiu Zhang wouldn't argue back, so he silently accepted the blame. After all, as captain, he had the authority to keep her off the team. Yet he couldn't have been more wrong. All the criticism made Qiu Zhang realize that being part of the Quidditch team wasn't as enjoyable as she'd imagined. It's a shame we lost, but is it entirely my fault? Don't you all bear any responsibility? So, Captain, how many points did you personally score? Roger Davies fell speechless under Qiu Zhang's retort. Ravenclaw had suffered a total defeat. As a chaser, he hadn't scored a single point. How could he possibly shift all the blame onto Qiu Zhang, a seeker? Qiu Zhang ignored Roger Davies entirely and turned toward those who'd been mocking her. If any of you truly believe you can fly better than me, then step forward and prove it. If you manage to beat me, I'll gladly leave the team. Suddenly, she no longer cared. Pretending to get along with these people was exhausting. Having vented her feelings, Qiu Zhang grabbed her broomstick and walked away, leaving the Ravenclaws standing there in stunned silence. They could handle verbal sparring, but actually competing against Qiu Zhang in flying? She'd earned her spot on the team through rigorous selection, outshining everyone with her exceptional flying abilities. Roger Davies was equally bewildered. He'd merely spoken offhandedly. Now, Ravenclaw had no other seeker to replace her. Without Qiu Zhang, the team truly had no one capable of filling her role. Meanwhile, Xiaji stood scratching his head, staring at the house elf before him in utter confusion. That very night after the Quidditch match, Dobby had messaged him, claiming he'd finally found a house elf without a master. Xiaji had tasked him with locating any house elves who'd been cast out by their owners. Initially, Xiaji intended to form an army composed entirely of house elves. Yet they were exceedingly rare, especially those who'd been expelled. Once cast out, most hid themselves away, too ashamed to show their faces, eventually starving to death. Finding them proved nearly impossible. Xiaji had largely given up on the idea, but Dobby persisted tirelessly for over a year before finally succeeding. He promptly informed Xiaji. Yet this house elf seemed even more unusual than Dobby. Xiaji met him at the Leaky Cauldron. Midnight had passed when Xiaji slipped out of Hogwarts and arrived at the tavern, where he saw him. This house elf was strikingly unappealing and appeared quite aged. He wore a leather jacket, a massive cigar clenched between his teeth, and bore a deep scar running from his left eye to the corner of his mouth. At that moment, he frowned while gulping down alcohol, muttering curses under his breath. Noticing someone watching him, he lifted his head. Squinting, he sized up the figure before him, an 11 or 12-year-old boy. "What are you staring at?" "Never seen a house elf before," he snapped irritably. "Well, I've never seen a house elf quite like you. TCH. What's it to you how I look? Where do you even come from, brat?" Xiaji sat opposite him, studying him with keen interest. "Hey, don't think just because you're a kid I won't dare hit you. Truth is, if I weren't waiting for someone and wanting to avoid trouble, I'd have tossed you out the second you approached." "Toss me out? Really?" Xiaji gestured toward Tom, the bartender. Tom frowned as he brought over a butterbeer. "Shouldn't you be at school? Sneaking here in the dead of night isn't wise. Drink up and head back, otherwise Professor Dumbledore'll have my hide." "Relax, Tom. I'm just here to handle a few matters. I'll return shortly." Xiaji greeted him with a smile. "Oi, kid, are you ignoring me?" Xiaji took a sip of butterbeer and replied nonchalantly. "You can't toss me out. The person you're waiting for is me." "You?" The house elf scrutinized Xiaji from head to toe. "You've got no hair yet. Where'd you get the gold to hire me?" Thwack! Xiaji casually tossed a pouch forward. It landed in the elf's arms, emitting a pleasing clink of metal. He opened it, and his already enormous eyes widened even further. "Does it matter whether I've got hair or not? And does this amount suffice to hire you?" "Absolutely." Since you've paid up, you're now my boss. The house elf tossed aside his cigar, produced a magical contract, and handed it to Xiaji. Xiaji was pleasantly surprised. This fellow seemed quite professional. He carefully reviewed the contract and, finding nothing amiss, signed it. It was a simple labor agreement. As long as Xiaji paid him and didn't fire him, the elf would serve him loyally. Interestingly, the contract explicitly stated he'd perform no household chores whatsoever. He'd rather face off against Voldemort himself than ever handle menial labor again. Well, Nick, let's hope we work well together. Xiaji extended his hand to shake with the house elf. Nick. Boss, what shall I do first? Settle into the quarters Dobby arranged for you. I'll assign tasks later. Xiaji stood, paid Tom, and left the leaky cauldron. Nick was truly unique. Xiaji knew he'd be indispensable in building his future house elf army, something Dobby simply couldn't accomplish.